Okay, so there came a point when I realized I was a confused Catholic. And I'm going to tell you some of those aha moments, and then I'm going to share with you some feelings I went through of being disconnected with the church and disconnected with other women within the Catholic community, and how I've kind of sought out clarity and sought out connection. And so whether you are a fallen away Catholic coming back to the Catholic Church to practice and be a more devout Catholic in your adult life, or you are a Catholic convert and you're like, I didn't know all these things as a kid and I didn't learn them, I just learned them recently, or I'm trying to learn them, maybe I can encourage you with my stories to show you kind of how I'm coming through the confusion still. I mean, it's still a process, still a journey, having more clarity in what I believe in, and finding connection, because I think women need connection so badly and desperately. So how I've kind of navigated through that, through some really, not an easy course in that either. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to find connections in real life if that's what you're searching for as well. Okay, so let's just make you feel good about yourself. If you're feeling confused, I'm going to give you some of my aha moments where I'm like, I am a confused Catholic. So first of all, I would go to church and not understand fully what was going on. Now, I had gone to 9 years of Catholic grade school, Mass twice a week. That meant twice a week. So once with my class and once with my parents on the weekend. And then, of course, through my high school years, yes, I continued to go to Mass, fallen away a little bit through college. But when I went back as a young adult, I did not feel engaged with the Mass at all. I was really just sitting there passively hearing things and not really understanding what was going on. And I knew if I wasn't feeling anything, emotionally, spiritually, or even at a mental level, like what in the world? I mean, I knew the basics. Like I said, I knew the basics, but I really didn't know what was going on, to be honest, completely. So I felt very confused, like, why am I not understanding or feeling anything or feeling a real engagement in the Mass? Then I started teaching my son's PSR class, and he was in 3rd grade when I started teaching that. And honestly, there were some things that he was learning that I didn't remember from being in 3rd grade religion class, or I just had forgotten about or never even learned. And I felt so embarrassed and ashamed that my son was learning things that I didn't even remember or know. So there were just, prayers or names of prayers or things that we practice as Catholics. Of course, there's a ton of saints, so I don't know all the saints all the time. And so I just felt like, man, there's so much in every area of my practicing Catholicism that I'm just missing out on. As my kids started their sacrament prep too, I needed to learn more about the sacraments. And again, I am, I wouldn't say like a Catholic revert where I've come back to the Catholic faith. So when I learned all these sacraments, they were at that early level. I learned them when I was between the ages of 5 and 13 in Catholic grade school. And so very surface level, trying to relearn them with my kids, trying to teach them and engage with them and really feel it for my own self. And I really wasn't feeling clear on them or even finding places where I could very readily or easily access to some of that information. I was taking a Bible study too, and that's just like a general Christianity thing. That was just a general, confusion of the Bible. As Catholics, I think we sometimes use that like scapegoat, like we're Catholic, we don't read the Bible. And I was taking a Bible study, and it was a non-denominational Bible study. And so there were people of every level, some just learning to read the Bible, just some really who have been within a Bible study for a long time. And so we just kind of helped each other navigate. And I remember my first year being in that Bible study, we read the Gospel of Matthew. And the first day was the first chapter of Matthew is the genealogy of Jesus. And I swear it was like, I opened up my book, I'm sitting in bed, reading my Bible, and I'm like doing the study guide that goes with it. I'm like nudging my husband every 5 seconds. I'm like, did you know this was in the Bible? They pointed out like 3 women in Jesus's genealogy. And I was like, there's no way. This is like too juicy. It's crazy. And so I realized, I had been missing the boat on getting engaged with Bible studies and the sacraments and just even the Mass. And so I felt very, very confused, very disconnected. I didn't have anybody else really to talk about this with. in my own peer group because I didn't have connections. I didn't have a Bible study at my own church. I just didn't have a small group of women within the Catholic community to share these things with. And to be honest, I felt alone because I didn't know if I was the only one or not. So I didn't say anything right away. Like, oh my gosh, who would want to admit that they don't know the Bible, they don't know their religion, and yet they're showing up at church every day hoping that they get something out of the Mass. Of course, the best thing you can do when you feel insecure is compare yourself to other people, right? Compare yourself to other women. So that's what I started doing. I'm like, I wonder if I'm the only one. And I would go to Mass and I would look around and I would think, she looks more prayerful than me. Well, first of all, I'm looking around, so I'm clearly not engaged in the Mass, but I would try to be engaged with the Mass. And if I didn't feel engaged, I would look around and get distracted because if you don't know what's going on, it's just some prayers and there's just, a lot of ritual to it. When you understand what's going on, it's really quite amazing and you'll never be bored again. But at that point, I was disengaged and I would look around and think, she looks more prayerful than me. I don't know, she kind of looks confused. And that's where I was. I was just comparing myself, walking out of church going, I wonder if she's like walking a little lighter and feeling better about herself now that she's been in Mass. And I didn't even have a way to connect with those other women to even know what their thoughts were or how they were feeling or how their religion or practice was affecting them that day or even for the week to come and how they were living out their faith. So I felt very disconnected with other people I was just even going to church with. Even though I went to church with people I knew, my kids, friends, parents, and other outside activities. I knew them on that level, but I didn't know them from the church level. Like, I wouldn't say, hey, pray for me, because that was just separate. We had separate lives, and when we were in church, we'd go into church and we'd come out. We wouldn't really talk about church. So I felt really alone there in even making those connections. And I was part of that Bible study, but it was a non-denominational Bible study. And so we weren't allowed to talk about denomination. We weren't allowed to talk about our beliefs within our denominations, obviously. And so I didn't even realize as I'm studying and I'm just learning more about the Bible and I'm learning more about sacraments and I'm learning more about just Jesus and all these things, I would say stuff in my Bible study and I didn't even know they were like Catholic. Okay, so people would like turn their head like I was a three-headed alien sometimes. And they're like, what is she talking about? And so I got real quiet and I'd be like, oh, I don't know what I should and shouldn't say. So I just, and I would still engage with that Bible study, of course. But it made me feel like I wasn't sure who I was or what I believed because I wasn't sure if everybody believed that or if it was just for me and my, Catholicism. And so again, I felt really disconnected to that group because I wasn't sure what was okay to say and what wasn't okay to say, just to be respectful of everybody there. So I hit a point where I was so confused and so frustrated that I knew something needed to change. And I started with just one other mom that I knew. And I just approached a mom and I was like, hey, how do you feel about being connected in the church? Like, do you feel like, you know other women and you're connecting with other women? We're doing sacrament prep. Like, how do you feel about that? And I would just ask very basic surface level questions to see where they were and get a response. And the first mom I remember was just kind of like, yeah, no, I don't feel connected. And yeah, I'm a little confused too. And I'm just learning this stuff with my kids. So I felt encouraged. And then I'd ask another mom. And then I'd ask another mom. And so I started reaching out. And then I remember one day when I was teaching PSR, after class, I asked my co-teacher, I said, what do you, how do you feel? I'm looking for a place to connect, and I was really excited to do PSR with my son, but I'm not really connecting with other women that way. And it's not, and we both agreed, we're like, we want to serve in the church. We want to give and serve and give our gifts and talents to the church. It's not like we just want to be takers, but how can we be in community with other women? And we looked at each other. I remember one day tearing up and I'm like, yeah, I'm not connected and I need that and I want that. And she was like, me too. And what I found was time and time again that I would find a mom who felt the same way, but we didn't have a solution. And so I went to the church and I said, is there anything, for us? And at the time there really wasn't. And that was okay, and there's nothing wrong with those other groups, but I didn't have something that was truly Catholic. And so when I couldn't find anything within the church, I looked for podcasts, I looked for YouTube videos, I looked for online influencers. I found a lot of stuff on social media, some Instagram friends, people I just kind of sought out, and I did start making friends and connections. Starting to reach out to people on social media as well, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they've got a huge following and they're doing some really Catholic things and they've got a great community, and it just took one mom at a time. And I say mom because that's what I am, and that's typically the age group I sought out. But there were women, individual women, who would reach back out to me, like one at a time. They would just encourage and say, yes, we'll help you get connected. I was in a community and found this woman on a private Facebook group from a podcast I was listening to, and she's actually in Florida. And she was one of the first people who reached back out to me to give me encouragement. So now we have this friendship that even though there's distance, I have a friend in a community that I know I am loved and supported, and have that within the Catholic faith. She has helped me and encouraged me so that I can help start a small group at my church, just through that one encouragement. Some communication over time, but there was also, I reached out to an author and she got back to me, and she does small groups, and she goes and she travels and she helps women get connected within their community. And she called me back one day and we talked, and she encouraged me, and it was just like one woman at a time just kept encouraging me. And there's so many things out there, but I didn't even know about them until I felt so disconnected that I had to search for them. And really within that Catholic community, because I love that Brene Brown quote. I don't even know what it is. I'll pop it on the screen. When you cannot show up authentically as yourself, you cannot get fully into that love and belonging. At some point in that Bible study I was taking, because it was non-denominational and I had such a heart for Catholicism, I knew I couldn't show up authentically as myself, because that's how I wanted to read scripture, that I couldn't feel love and belonging in that group at that point. I know at some point I did, and I know at some point I can, but as I'm developing and learning right now, I wanted something authentically me that is Catholic, so that I can talk about those things and not feel bad or embarrassed or ashamed if everyone in the room whips their head and says, what did you just say? That was really important to me, is to be in community with women who have the same beliefs. I follow non-Catholic Christian authors, non-Catholic Christian singers, and music and artists and things like that. But as far as learning and growing right now, I love being in community with other Catholic women, because that's where I want my journey to grow right now. And so if you are seeking that as well, of course, drop questions in the comments below and I can help you with some things if you're navigating through those. But really it just starts with asking at your church, asking friends, one person at a time, just really generic, general questions. You don't have to completely out yourself that you are so confused and disconnected, I know nothing, what about you? Just hey, how do you feel as being connected? If you're new to a church or you don't know that many people, you may even just say, hey, you have a really friendly face. I feel like maybe we should have met before. How long have you been in the parish? Do you know of any groups that connect with other moms? Just simple little questions, one person at a time. Get connected with people who are like-minded as you are in this Catholic community. I hope that encourages you. If you are Catholic and confused and disconnected, you have a place here. Put some comments below, ask me some questions, personal message me.